We are just a few days away from the big event, and I have an exciting announcement regarding that. Over the next few days, I'll be posting at least one player breakdown and one mock draft up every single day leading up to the draft for your entertainment. So make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below, and let's get right into it. Hello and welcome into the backfield. I'm your host Connor Schaff, and today we are going to be going over the quarterbacks who will be being selected in the 2025 NFL Draft. I'll be going through each player that is draft eligible, minus maybe a couple that are almost certainly undrafted players, and giving you a breakdown of their strengths, weaknesses, and more. So let's get started with number 14. So you can see here on, I think this side, that I have a nice little graphic coming up. I made all of these graphics myself, and I'm very happy with how they turned out. I will have a bit more information later in the video of how you can access these graphics after the video as well. But we're first getting into number 14 with Max Brosmer. Now, Max Brosmer is a player out of Minnesota who I expect to kind of go in the late day 3 to being undrafted type of range. I think he could get picked at the back of the 7th round, kind of like a Sam Hartman did towards the end of the draft last year, but I think there's a good chance he will end up going undrafted. And I actually want to say that Sam Hartman did go undrafted. Maybe I'm thinking of someone more like Michael Pratt, who I know did get picked in the 7th round by the Green Bay Packers. But Max Brosmer is a Minnesota grad, maybe not a grad, well, I'm not 100% sure about that, but he started his career at Minnesota following being recruited as a 0-star prospect out of college. Now, he doesn't have incredible NFL arm talent, and I think he'll struggle against some high-quality defenses, but I think he still has some exciting prospects to him. The big thing for me is his footwork. I do think he has some very professional footwork to him, and I think he is also a very tough player who can absorb contact in tough situations, as shown by the fact that he really has had no major injuries throughout his college career. As mentioned before, he does have some cons as well, with some below average arm talent in a smaller than ideal frame. He also has a lack of height that might impact his ability to throw over the offensive line, but we've seen guys like Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson still be able to succeed. Besides that, in conclusion, Brosmer has some efficient mechanics and some very good mental processing, but I think at most he will be a QB3 to a practice squad type player in the NFL. Moving on to number 13, we have Seth Hennigan, the quarterback out of Memphis. Now, he was a 4-year starter at Memphis and had a very, very good career there. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the most impressive actual gameplay to show off from that. He was a very good player over his 4 years, but didn't play the best of competition and didn't show off anything crazy that makes you think that he's going to be a high draft pick. I definitely see him being around a round 6 to round 7 pick and maybe even fall out of the draft. I think that he has some high quality things to show off though, as at first he is a very experienced player and he has talent as a multi-year starter. He also has a compact release and a quick throwing motion that makes him get into tight lanes and could help him at the NFL level. As mentioned before, he is a very confident player and tough in the pocket, and that will help him in situations where the pocket's collapsing on him. It could help him jump into a situation when need be. On the other hand, though, I think the big thing for him is he does have below average arm strength. It's tough to get him that long ball accuracy, as he really doesn't have the capabilities of doing that, and on top of that, he really has limited mobility, and I think he would have to be a system quarterback if he had to be put into that situation. I think if you look at him, he kind of has a floor of like a Tim Boyle type player, but I think he has a very high ceiling if he can be tapped into it. In a lot of ways, he does remind me of Brock Purdy coming out of college. Realistically, though, I think he's going to be a Bailey Zappi type player, and that is okay. Moving on to number 12, we had a man who had quite a gruesome injury towards the end of last season. This is Graham Mertz. Unfortunately, he had a severe ACL tear that ended his college career last year and didn't have much injury luck in previous years, where he fractured his collarbone in 2023 as well. With that being said, he's still a highly experienced quarterback who had experience at Wisconsin before moving to Florida. Though he wasn't great at Wisconsin, I would say he had a much better start to his season at Florida. He's a former top recruit that possesses good size and mechanics with a smooth delivery and enough arm talent to operate within NFL structure. He has solid mechanics and a quick release, and as mentioned before, he has experience in multiple Power 5 systems, which I think really plays into what a coach is looking for nowadays in the NFL. The adaptability is quite important in going to a situation in Florida, which is honestly probably a more difficult offense to move into, and he excelled in that offense in his first few games. He is comfortable in RPO and play action concepts that isn't used a ton at the NFL level, but is a good thing to happen, and he, because of that, does operate quite well within rhythm and time-based schemes. With that being said, there are some serious cons as well. There is a big issue with how he performs under pressure. We saw it numerous times across time in Wisconsin, not as much at Florida, where he struggled to perform in big situations. And that is something that is really struggled to see how you would improve at the NFL level after that. He also lacks aggressive mentality in late game situations, and he struggles to really take that leadership role in those times of need. Now, I think that he is probably never going to be a starting caliber player, as I have his Florida ceiling kind of being Sean Mannion to Taylor Heineke, someone who can kind of jump in a moment's notice, but is never going to be a starting caliber player. Realistically, I think he'll be that kind of Nick Mullins type of player. In conclusion, Graham Mertz brings polished experience and city decision making, but his physical ceiling is low. He could be a dependable QB3 or emergency backup in a system that values timing and efficiency over improvisation or raw arm talent. We now move on to number 11 with the Indiana-based man Curtis Rourke. He was a big riser after the 2024 season and when he transferred from Ohio University to Indiana, where he had an exceptional 2024 season. He's a big-bodied passer with a smooth delivery, and he is strong under pressure. He's comfortable operating rhythm-based passing schemes and is willing to make throws into tight windows. He's very good in anticipation and has a mature presence and leadership. The big issue, though, is that he lacks velocity under his throws, which makes me struggle to see how he can adapt to the NFL level. And given the fact that he reportedly played in 2024 with the torn ACL and broken thumb, there's definitely some concern about how he can recover. I see his floor being around an Easton Stick level and his ceiling being around Jacoby Brissett, with a realistic possibility being Clinton Tune. In conclusion, Curtis Rourke has a lot of the traits of a smart, steady backup in the NFL, but may be limited to a QB3 role, but maybe can step in a must-need situation. We now move on to number 10 with, unlike Curtis Rourke, who was a 2024 riser, Tyler Shough was a 2025 riser. Now, Tyler Shough is a big, toolsy quarterback whose career was marred by injuries and inconsistency. He played at Oregon and Texas Tech before transferring to Louisville, which was his first season where he could really show off his skills. He had 3 major injuries over the course of his first 3 seasons, with a broken collarbone keeping him sidelined for much of 2021 and 2022, a fractured fibula keeping him out in 2023. He does have an NFL caliber arm that can push the ball vertically quite well. He's also a good athlete for his size and is experienced in multiple systems. On the other hand, though, because of his long injury history, we don't really know what he can do in a full season, as he really was never healthy for an entire year. He also does have pretty inconsistent accuracy and decision making, but there is some serious upside with this player. I do see him as kind of a floor of a Brandon Allen, but maybe a ceiling much higher like a Ryan Tannehill. Realistically, though, I think he'll kind of be around that Mike White range, where he is just a career backup. Tyler Shough has the physical makeup and arm talent to be a late-round developmental quarterback, but durability concerns and inconsistent decision-making cloud his projection. I think that it's possible that he could be a QB2, but I think he'll likely be a QB3 to practice squad type of guy. We now move on to number 9 with Dillon Gabriel. Now, Dillon Gabriel was someone who for a little while people thought might even sneak into the first round but I gotta be honest, I do not see it with him. I have him projected as around 5 to 6-ish type of guy that maybe could even fall even lower. He's a left-handed veteran quarterback with over 50 career starts in college. He started at both at UCF, Oklahoma, and Oregon, with his most successful season coming in 2024 at Oregon. He has a lightning quick release and footwork and a high football IQ. He does have quite good ball placement on short throws and consistency in keeping his eyes downfield on passing plays. The big con with him, though, is he is very undersized and has below average arm strength. The big comparison for me with him is Tua Tagovailoa, as you see a lot of similarities between the two. They are both of Polynesian descent, just to start off with, but they are also both left-handed and undersized and have below average arm strength. You do see that Tua Tagovailoa has worked out quite well in the NFL, but he is in quite a good system to succeed. If Dillon Gabriel can't be put in a situation like that, then I struggle to see it. I also got to watch one of his games live when he took on Purdue, and despite playing an absolutely horrible team in Purdue, he did seem to struggle quite a bit, in my opinion. He has also dealt with a couple injuries throughout his career, but nothing too crazy, and I don't think he has a severe injury risk going into the NFL. I think that Dillon Gabriel can be a strong backup for any NFL team, but might struggle to develop in anything better than a QB2 or QB3. We now move on to the baby-faced man himself, who honestly, this picture does him a little dirty. I don't know if you guys can see this. You should be able to, otherwise I am a total failure in the editing room. But it is Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. Now, this is another guy that I might be a little lower on than some people. We're getting into a tough range to rank some guys, but Kyle McCord is a former 5-star recruit who transferred from Ohio State to Syracuse after an up and down year with the Buckeyes. Now, I think that he showed quite good things at Syracuse in 2024, but I really struggle to look past his 2023 season with Ohio State, where he struggled quite a lot. You look at how Will Howard walked into the situation. I'm not the highest on Will Howard either, and performed significantly better than Kyle McCord did in 2023. Now, Kyle McCord definitely showed some progressions in 2024, but there are definitely still things you can't look past with him. Looking at the pro side, he does have very good size and throwing mechanics. He has some incredible accuracy on intermediate throws that shows off his skill set in many ways. On the other hand, though, he very much does struggle under pressure. If a defender is right in his face, he really struggles with footwork and accuracy. He also has inconsistent decision making versus complex coverages, and that is something that really concerns me with his NFL skill ceiling. With that being said, he's also had no major injuries throughout his career, which is definitely a positive. I think he has quite a high ceiling and low floor with him, though, as I think his floor might be around Nate Sudfeld, ceiling might be around even a Jared Goff. But I think realistically he might be around a Davis Mills level where he can step in when need be, but he really is just a backup. Well, I mentioned his name just before, but we now have Will Howard, the Ohio State quarterback and the reigning national champion quarterback. I think he's going to be around an early day 3 selection, and I really struggled to know with Will Howard. I thought Will Howard showed some incredible flashes in 2024, especially in the postseason as he tore up Tennessee's defense, Oregon's defense, and Texas's defense. Notre Dame, I think he had a bit more of a struggle against, but they still won that game in very impressive fashion. You know what my biggest concern is, though, is I was actually at the NFL Combine in person. My gosh, did this guy have an impressively bad performance. The crowd was all behind Will Howard at this event, and he somehow still was getting boos from the crowd, and they were almost laughing at him after every throw. And that I cannot get out of my mind when ranking him. With that being said, he's still the number 7 quarterback in this draft class, and I think he has the potential to maybe even sneak into day 2, though I think he's likely going to be around 4 to 5 pick. He does have prototypical size and build for his position and is comfortable in structured passing concepts. I think if he gets put in a system where he can really excel at his strengths, he does have a lot of potential. He also has some dual threat capability on designed runs, which is a very important thing to have nowadays in the NFL. The biggest thing for me, though, as I mentioned before, is his accuracy is just so inconsistent, especially when he's on the move. He can also hesitate in some senses in full field progressions and is kind of conservative on third and longs and tends to go for checkdowns in a lot of situations, which you can do when you have guys like Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka, but you're not necessarily guaranteed to have those matchup nightmares in the NFL. He did have a durable career with no major injuries, but I do think he has quite a low skill ceiling, with I have him being compared to Daniel Jones. I think a realistic comparison for him is someone like Jarrett Stidham, who's a career backup but can step in when need be. Will Toward is a tough, experienced quarterback with the baseline tools to develop into a quality backup. I think that he likely can be a QB2 throughout his career. I'd be surprised to see him sitting on the practice squad and not being on an NFL roster at all times. We now move on to the man out of Texas, Quinn Ewers, who I actually might be a little higher on than some people. Having him at number 6 out of the quarterback class, it may be a little higher than some other people have, but I don't think it's much higher to say that he's going to be an early day 3 selection. Keeping in mind that my projected draft range is just what I'm hearing in the media that the players are going to go, and not necessarily what I believe where I believe they should go. Quinn Ewers is someone who I think has some good talent, but I do think he has some very severe struggles as well. He was the former number 1 overall recruit in the 2021 class when he transferred from Ohio State to Texas, where he showed flashes of brilliance in the Longhorn offense. Now he has dealt with some serious injuries throughout his career, as he dealt with things like a high ankle sprain and torn oblique from 2022 to 2024, missing time in pretty much every season of his starting career. On the positive side, though, he does have some elite arm talent with a rare natural release and velocity. He also has some flashes of an impressive touch and timing at all 3 levels of the passing game. He has some ability to improvise and throw off script, and he did improve his poise and decision making down the stretch in 2024. The biggest thing for me is he has very inconsistent footwork and lower body mechanics. I really struggle to see how he can adapt to the NFL level in the current way he throws the ball. He holds on consistently too long, and that leads him into some tough situations. You can see against Ohio State in the college football playoff, he had a horrible interception down the stretch that pretty much single-handedly lost Texas the game. He also kind of drifts unnecessarily out of the pocket when he doesn't need to. Reminds me a lot of what Caleb Williams did in college, though I don't think that Quinn Ewers is anywhere near as polished of a player as Quinn Ewers. I do see him kind of having a ceiling of someone like Kirk Cousins. He has a very high skill ceiling in my opinion. And ignoring the Texas reference here, I do think that Colt McCoy is his floor, which kind of just means a nobody. I think that Quinn Ewers remains a polarizing prospect, but he has elite arm strength and a natural feel for the game. I could 100% see him being a consistent QB2 option in the NFL, and I don't see him rotting out on practice squads, as I think he'll be consistently signed to NFL rosters. We now move on to what I like to call the top of tier 2 of NFL draft quarterbacks, and I believe that Riley Leonard is the best of the rest in this draft class. I think that people are sleeping on Riley Leonard quite a bit, as I think he has a ton to offer. And where I think that comes from is that he is an unbelievable dual threat quarterback. In a lot of ways, he reminds me of kind of like a Tyler Huntley in how he gives this ability to run the ball so effectively in run design plays, and he is really just I do believe that he's kind of just going to be a backup for a dual threat quarterback that can come in on moment's notice and succeed. Riley Leonard is a physical and fearless runner that creates an offense with his legs. He has adequate velocity on intermediate throws, and he flashes the ability to scan full field reads when in rhythm. On the other hand, though, his accuracy and ball placement leaves something to be desired, and his pocket presence can deteriorate when under pressure. He does have a very low average depth of target in 2024, and he doesn't really throw the ball deep at all. Now, given the way I expect him to be played in the NFL, I don't think that's going to be too big of a concern. With that being said, he does have a bit of an injury history after he had a pretty severe injury at Duke in 2023 before transferring to Notre Dame, which pretty much kept it out for most of the season. I don't really like the player comparisons I added here. I might have forgotten to change them over from another player. Not sure how Ryan Tannehill is a ceiling for a player that is incredibly run heavy, but I think that I do like my comparison of someone like a Tyler Huntley, who's just a run-first type of backup. And I think at ceiling, maybe he can even be someone like a, let's see, trying to think of a not top tier, but a decent enough run-first type of player. I'm thinking of a Anthony Richardson type of guy. Maybe a Gardner Minshew type player. But I think that Riley Leonard projects as a developmental quarterback with a strong rushing upside. I can very much see him being a QB2 in many different teams, and I think he has the potential to succeed in the NFL, though I can't see him ever being a starter. As I mentioned before, I believe there is a massive tier break between 5 and 4 in this ranking, as I have number 4, Jackson Dart. Now, this is another situation where I have to point out that this is not where I believe the player is going to go, or this is not where the player is probably going to go. This is where I believe the player ranks in comparison to other quarterbacks. I believe that Jackson Dart 100% will go higher than the player I have ahead of him. Or behind, or yes, ahead of him. But I do favor the player ahead of him a little more. I assume you can guess who that is. I will get to them in just a second. I believe that Jackson Dart will be around, or either a round 1 or round 2 player. I cannot see him going any lower. It seems like people are starting to get really hyped about him. Jackson Dart is a former UFC transfer who really revitalized his career at Ole Miss. He ended up earning elite PFF passing grades in consecutive seasons at Ole Miss, as he has a natural feel for escaping pressure and throwing on the move. He also is light, active feet that keeps him mobile in the pocket, and he has an incredibly quick release with a solid zip on intermediate throws. I do think he has some cons though as well, with very inconsistent deep ball accuracy. I did very much appreciate his performance at the Combine, where I thought he had the best performance out of all quarterbacks that competed. I thought he had a very good time showing off his deep ball in a way that I haven't seen a ton in his college career, but I think that maybe he can learn this part of his game at the NFL level. I definitely think that Jackson Dart has the potential to be a starting caliber player, but he has some things still that he needs to improve on, and think that at worst he will be a viable long-term QB2 option. We now have my number 3 guy with Jalen Milroe. Now, I think Jalen Milroe out of Alabama is a likely round 2 pick, but I think he may fall to round 3 depending on how many quarterbacks go in round 1. I think that Jalen Milroe is one of the most dynamic athletes at the quarterback position in this class, might even be the best. He is a true dual threat quarterback with an amazing ability in both the passing and running game. He is an elite athlete with running back caliber explosiveness, and he also has a big arm with the ability to attack deep windows. In a lot of ways, he reminds me of a Jalen Hurts type player out of college, where he can run and throw and is just a big bodied guy that can kind of do it all. With that being said, he's still developing as a full field processor, and he is incredibly inconsistent with his play. We saw him go for one game where he had an absolutely incredible performance against Georgia, and then go and lose 24-3 to a mid-Oklahoma team. Jalen Milroe is a high variance quarterback prospect whose upside as both a rusher and a passer is enormous. He's not ready right now to start in his career, but I think he has the potential as a QB1 in the future if he sits behind a guy and moves in the future. As with there being quite a clear 3 and 4, there's also quite a clear 1 and 2. And I think that those two guys' position are very self-explanatory, with number 2 being Shadur Sanders out of the University of Colorado. I think that Shedeur Sanders has a lot of upside with him, and I think he's guaranteed to be a round 1 pick in this draft. I think the lowest he's going to fall to is 21 to the Steelers. If he's still on the board, then I see no way the Steelers don't take him. Shedeur Sanders is a high-profile quarterback who transferred to Colorado with his father, Deion Sanders, after a dominant stint at Jackson State. Sanders has excellent accuracy and touch at all 3 levels of play, and consistently is poised in the face of pressure. We saw him have one of the highest pressure rates in college football, where his offensive line consistently collapsed in front of him, and he was still constantly able to get off very good throws. Now, he hasn't shown the best ability to escape that pressure effectively, so I'm slightly concerned about his ability to do that under a not-so-great offensive line if he's put in that situation in the NFL. He has some average arm strength though, and he does lose some throws down the field. He's also not necessarily a dynamic athlete. As I mentioned before, his mobility is quite limited. He is very much a system player, and I do think if he's put in the right system, he'll very much succeed, but if not, I don't really know. I think he kind of has a floor of like a Bailey Zappi type of player and a ceiling very high of someone like Dak Prescott. Realistically, I think he'll be a consistent starter in the NFL, kind of like Geno Smith is, but not a guy that always catches your eye and blows you away. We now are left with one man left, and who else did you expect it to be but the man that's basically confirmed to be the number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward. Cam Ward is a highly productive dual-threat quarterback that began his career at Incarnate Word in the FCS level, where he starred at that level before he transferred to Washington State and finished his career at Miami. To be honest with you, I thought he was going to commit for the draft last year, where he would have been around a 2nd-round pick, but he very much made the right decision staying in college for 1 more year, because now he is the best player or the best quarterback in the class, and probably a top 10 player in most people's eyes. Granted, this is definitely a much worse class than last year, but it's still very impressive for him to do. He has a very quick release and an excellent short to intermediate accuracy. He's capable of improvising and extending plays with his legs, and he has an incredible arm capable of making throws at any platform, including those really deep throws. With that being said, he also has very inconsistent decision making outside of structure, and he makes some brain-dead decisions sometimes where he turns the ball over in crazy situations. This guy is very much a developmental quarterback, and he is someone who you can really mold into the way you want to. You will have to get rid of that turnover tendency from him, but I think if you can, he has the potential to be a star player in this league. With that being said, that is all I have for today. Make sure to stay tuned for the next week, where I will be going through running back rankings, wide receiver rankings, and every single position. Hopefully, we'll see what happens time-wise, but my goal is to get through all positions. In addition to that, I will be giving you a mock draft a day for the next week and posting more videos as needed. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.